Seated there in a custom-made blue pinstripe suit with a blood-red rosebud in his lapel was a man who might have been anywhere between 45 and 60. His hair was black and full, combed straight back on a high forehead, yet his square-cut goatee and pointed mustache were white as ermine. He was tanned and elegant, his eyes a distant, ethereal blue. This is how William Jortsberg described Louis Cyphre in his novel Falling Angel. In this video, we'll compare differences between how Cyphre was depicted in the source material and the film as performed by Robert De Niro. Angel Heart was released in 1987, written and directed by Alan Parker, and based on the novel Falling Angel by William Jortsberg. In the book, Angel first meets Cyphre in a New York restaurant. It is a meeting between the two of them. The backstory is given just as seen in the film, including Cyphre's insistence verifying Angel's identification. Cyphre shares his experiences, popping in unexpectedly at the Poughkeepsie Hospital, but he does it alone, and not with wine sap, as spoken in the film. The book has Cyphre visiting a second time, during visiting hours, but was denied seeing Johnny Liebling. Cyphre tells Harry, "I grew quite indignant. I'm afraid I made something of a scene. That was a mistake. The receptionist threatened to call the police unless I left immediately." In the movie, Harry meets Cyphre for the first time inside the Kingdom Mission. Cyphre's attorney, Herman Weinsap, introduces Angel to him. This is where Angel is given backstory into Johnny Liebling and is hired to investigate his status at the Sarah Dodd Harvest Private Hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York. Cyphre explained he didn't want to make a fuss when given the runaround. Unlike the film, where Cyphre seems so polite and even-tempered, the book tells us otherwise, that he is capable of a temper. Another cosmetic difference, as read in Jortsberg's description, while Cyphre is a well-dressed man, he does not sport a white beard. Falling Angel's second meeting between Angel and Cyphre happens over the telephone. Like the film, it happens after Harry's interview with Fowler in his home before his unfortunate demise. Angel confesses that finding a missing person after 15 years is too much for him, but Cyphre is adamant and offers Angel more money to continue his investigation alone. Cyphre even offers to pay in advance. This keeps Angel's attention. And in the movie, Harry's second meeting with Cyphre comes inside an Italian cafe. Possibly it's a subtle tribute to the source material to have the two meet in a restaurant. The narrative is essentially parallel to the source material, but Angel shows more trepidation with Fowler's death and wants out. Cyphre shows contempt for Favorite by subtly comparing him to a slug. While in the book, Cyphre's voice over the phone grew corrosive. Cyphre gives a cool yet calculating response and tempts Harry with a bonus. Harry accepts it. Of course, with a face-to-face meeting, we get the boiled eggs. The source material's third meeting has similarities as far as the context of their conversation as the film. However, the tone couldn't be more different. First, Angel meets Cyphre inside a fancy French restaurant where pâté is on the menu. This comes after Harry uncovers Cyphre's side quests, performing as El Saphir for a certain reverend in Harlem. Cyphre tells Angel he's on his way to the Vatican to meet the Pope. The film version takes the base narratives from the book. Harry speaks of Margaret's death, but Angel Heart makes no direct references of Cyphre's sideshow acts. Cyphre explains he was in the area with a speaking engagement in Baton Rouge. For the casual viewer, this makes Cyphre look like a respectful businessman, touring the country so he can afford to pay for the suits, Italian eggs, and private detectives. But this pays a very subtle homage to Cyphre's hobby. The book has Angel follow Cyphre throughout New York City, where Angel sees the mysterious man in the black suit making performances on his free time, from magic shows and small stage performances to religious sermons in Harlem churches. This takes us back to Reverend Love. In the book, Love introduces a guest speaker as a holy man of great wisdom named El Cyphre, but it is Louis Cyphre, dressed like a sultan. Angel looks on and listens as Cyphre gives a passionate speech about being strong and merciless. But Cyphre's words, his advice, are strangely descriptive of 3 recent murders. The crowd is driven into a frenzy, waving and shaking their hands. There is a lot in the Pastor John's mission that was inspired from the book, including references to violence inflicted by the congregation. And we even get to hear a smidgen of Cyphre's speech in the film. It's said rather calmly when Cyphre explains he has an old-fashioned sense of honor, telling Angel, in a church, he believes in an eye for an eye. It also may be paying tribute to the source material. While Cyphre makes no mention of traveling to Catholic holy sites, he and Angel do meet in the Catholic Church, and according to lore, it was part of Johnny Liebling's childhood. Before we continue with other Cyphre differences between the film and source material, like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this video and want to see more content like this one. A few other Cyphre facts found in the novel but not the film include Harry Angel's dreams. In the film, he has daydreams, or daymares, about a certain event on New Year's Eve, 1943. But in the book, Angel has nightmares in his sleep about Cyphre, including one where he turns into a bear. Angel also turns his investigation on Cyphre and follows him through New York City at much displeasure of Herman Weinsap. Harry discovers Cyphre posing as a small-time magician inside a penny arcade flea circus, and Cyphre even has an agent. Cyphre's performance has to be read to be believed. Georgeburg's description of the devil is part pitchman and snake oil salesman, attempting to be metaphysical by leveraging human frailties. This side of Cyphre is omitted in Alan Parker's film. As found in both book and film, Angel and Cyphre have one final meeting, one final confrontation. What we see in the film is Angel rushing to Margaret Krusemark's place, ransacking it, trying to find a canopic vase holding dog tags. Here is where Harry discovers the truth about who he is. Cyphre appears, waiting for him in the front room. Harry finally has an epiphany, not that one, and realizes Louis Cyphre is Lucifer. As Harry drifts into another daydream, Cyphre quietly makes off with Harry's dog tags and pistol. He has enough to convict Angel for the rest of his life, what's left of it otherwise. The book is very similar, but, as it's based entirely in New York, it reads Harry returns to his office late night, finding the place had been ransacked. He's knocked out cold and wakes up to Cyphre dressed in a tuxedo, pouring water on him. Like the film, there's a joke about Cyphre's name. Revelation that Weinsap was killed in a horrible accident. Cyphre is vocal and upfront about taking Angel's pistol and dog tags. But unlike the film, Cyphre also grabs Angel's horoscope, as drafted by Margaret before her death. Angel had put it in a safe rather than destroying it. The book implies it was the horoscope that will convict him. Another minor difference from the film was Cyphre's disappointment hearing that Ethan Krusemark was killed by Harry Angel deliberately. Cyphre commented, "The loss of one of the faithful is always regrettable." Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Robert De Niro's performance as Lucifer? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, when in Manhattan, Mephistopheles is quite a mouthful. Epiphany Proudfoot. She's a priestess of the Obeah who leads a spiritual sect from deep in the bayou to your local neighborhood bar in Algiers, Louisiana. Her reach goes beyond the spiritual world, relying on a network of guitar players and herb shops. Still, she's a mysterious figure who have seen her share of evil for a young age. In this video, we make a character study into Epiphany Proudfoot and her mother. Angel Heart was released in 1987, written and directed by Alan Parker, and based on the novel Falling Angel by William Georgeburg. To learn more about Epiphany, we start with her mother, Evangeline. Evangeline is first mentioned when Harry Angel interviewed Spider Simpson. Simpson, the retired band leader, revealed Favorite's true and secret love was Evangeline. Evangeline ran a spooky store in Harlem. Johnny Favorite would see her while he was engaged to Margaret Krusemark. Mentioned only in the script, Evangeline escaped to New Orleans when Johnny Favorite broke off his engagement with Margaret Krusemark. Harry Angel's quest to find Evangeline began in New Orleans. He goes into Mammy Carter's herb store and asks many questions. All Angel learns is Evangeline would come to the store when she came in from New York, but Evangeline got sick and died waiting. Angel finds the cemetery and Evangeline's grave. Evangeline was born in 1918, the same year as Johnny Favorite, and died in 1947 at the age of about 29. It is at the cemetery where Angel meets her daughter Epiphany, the one with the pretty eyes, and her young son. Epiphany denies knowing who Johnny Favorite was and confesses little more. Angel's trail takes him to the Red Rooster, where Toots Sweet avoids Harry's questions, but can't evade him inside the men's room, and a chicken's foot makes its appearance. Angel follows Toots deep into the bayou, where he runs across an obeah ceremony. Seeing both Toots and its priestess Epiphany Proudfoot. It is a congregation of followers meeting in seclusion, where drums and maracas beat to the rhythm of the night. Chickens are sacrificed. Its blood energizes the mystic energy of the obeah. After a confrontation back at Toots' apartment, Toots tells Harry Epiphany is a mambo, priestess like her mother, Evangeline, and has been since she was 13. It would be one of the last things Toots would ever say. Angel meets Epiphany and confronts her about Toots' murder. She acts casual, but confesses that Johnny Favorite was her father. Her mama waited, her mama died. Favorite never came home. Returning from a meeting with Cyphre at a local Catholic church, Epiphany waits for him outside his hotel door in the rain. The film does not make clear why, but the script revealed someone had drawn mystic graffiti on her door, and Epiphany came to Angel for protection. Inside Angel's lair, Epiphany accepts a drink from Angel and explains to him why some women prefer men who dissect small animals. But more interesting, she reveals two things her mother told her. Favorite was the closest thing to evil she ever wanted to come, and he was a terrific lover. And her mother said this to a 9-year-old. One of the last clues we are told about the bond between Epiphany and her father Favorite is the song her mother sang for her. It is Girl of My Dreams, and it touches a raw nerve inside Harry Angel. He's beside himself in a broken reflection. Epiphany's history may have begun in New York. Her birth year would have been 1938, the same year Favorite begins headlining with Spider Simpson. This is at least 2 years after Favorite is introduced to Margaret at the prom. Epiphany would have been 4, maybe 5 years old, New Year's Eve, 1943. But the film offers no clues, hints, or exposition of any experiences of Epiphany and her father. Epiphany never talks about life in New York, or, as the source material explained, how she worked in her mother's store. One idea, she spent her life in New Orleans. This explains Evangeline visiting often from New York, and Epiphany's lack of memories with her father, Johnny Favorite. We learned Toots Sweet had a history with both Evangeline and Epiphany. Toots and Favorite were friends. Toots was there during the sacrifice. In another video, I posited that Toots may have introduced Favorite to Evangeline, and she was the lady in black on that horrible night. After Favorite stole a man's soul with help of a sacrificial dagger, before he was drafted and sent to Tunisia, he had dumped on everyone, left the Spider Simpson band, and broke off his engagement with Margaret and disappeared from everyone's lives, or so it seemed. Before we get to the final theories, like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this one. Who left the chicken's foot for Toots Sweet? There's what the film implies, what the script hints, and the source material reads. Harry Angel tells Epiphany he's both looking for Johnny Favorite and going to see Toots Sweet perform. Epiphany already remembered how dangerous Johnny Favorite was. Perhaps even Toots Sweet himself shared some stories in exchange for protection in her congregation. Angel confronts Epiphany about the Toots murder and accuses her for planting the chicken's foot. The script had Epiphany reply, "He had a big mouth." She neither confirmed nor denied it. The film had Epiphany add a "yeah," as in, "Yeah, he had a big mouth." Was her answer rhetorical? Did she confess? Or did she just acknowledge Angel's question? The source material, Falling Angel by William Jortsberg, explained a relative of Epiphany's planted the foot at the request of the high priestess. Epiphany's reign as priestess would only last 4 years before she was murdered. Her followers will be under new leadership when he is ready. Johnny Favorite would burn in hell, possibly taken there by way of the electric chair. And Evangeline Proudfoot will be there watching and waiting. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Epiphany? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, you won't see your future if you don't have one. Margaret Krusemark, aka Madame Zora, was one of Johnny Favorite's co-conspirators in his plot to outsmart the Prince of Darkness, a fortune teller and witch. Margaret had her heart broken twice by the crooner she first fell in love with down in New Orleans. Private Detective Harry Angel tracks her whereabouts from Coney Island to Louisiana, collecting information about Margaret and her father, Ethan Krusemark, making appearances in 2 scenes, alive speaking in 1. We decode the secrets behind Madame Krusemark. Angel Heart was released in 1987, written and directed by Alan Parker, and based on the novel Falling Angel by William Jortsberg. Krusemark is introduced outdoors waiting to hop on a trolley. We get a glimpse of a mule-driven cart of ice. True, it's a nice period piece prop, and New Orleans is hot. But is this a foreshadow? It is not uncommon symbolizing death with ice. It is not the last time we see ice in the presence of a Krusemark. Are we given a hint about the cooling of food? Is there an association with this and Dr. Fowler's refrigerator? If you're not quite convinced, let's look at the chalkboard listing eggs and ice cream. You'll find them in an ice box, and many varieties of eggs, dairy, and ice cream are colored white, the color of bones. Ice is also a symbol for a cold personality. The next person we see in frame after given a flash of ice is Madame Krusemark. Harry Angel hops on the trolley. He is fixated on Margaret and does not take his eyes off her. Angel then sits in the segregated section of the trolley. This gives several messages. Some are very clever. First, Angel Heart is a period piece film. We get a picture of life in the 1950s, including examples of social injustice. Is it authentic? Does it fulfill our expectation of life in the 50s, of a film produced in the late 80s? Sure, but it also takes us out of our comfort zone. We're not supposed to be comfortable. The audience is pulled into another surreal world. Rather than expecting to bring a period piece movie into the present, complete with contemporary expectations. It's also an example of dark humor. He's so infatuated with Margaret, he doesn't notice, or doesn't care. He's not implicitly following the cultural norms of the time. In some ways, he's mocking the sign, and does it better than attempts made today on very similar topics. However, I posit there is another, deeper meaning. There are many hints into the mind of Harry Angel and Johnny Favorite when it comes to race. Outside the Kingdom mission, he helps a woman with her hat. Favorite performed in a band named after Spider Simpson. There was Evangeline Proudfoot. And let's not forget Epiphany. Favorite may have been described as a man closest to evil, but he was not a segregationist. He treated everyone the same. He hated them all equally. There is also the music. We hear the notes to Girl of My Dreams on piano. We heard it inside the diner between Harry's visits to Dr. Fowler. If you listen to the diner scene, the music has trouble kicking off. Before beginning its tune, it plays the same key 4 times. There is no hesitation in the trolley. Is the music soundtrack? Only we the audience hear? Or is it diegetic, heard within the mind of Harry Angel? We see not Harry Angel falling in love with Margaret, but Johnny Favorite, and continues to look at Margaret as she walks away. The look on his face is somewhere between a psychotic stalker and a bashful schoolboy looking at his first crush. Angel arrives at Margaret's home. We get another camera frame of stairs. Like Fowler's residence, the staircase goes up out of sight. The camera is deliberately positioned downstairs to give an obtuse angle. When Margaret answers the door, we understand that Harry arrived early, unsure if his appointment was at 1 or 1:30. A very subtle clue about double personalities. Who will show up? The Harry Angel of 1 p.m. or the Johnny Favorite of 1:30? When Harry is let into the home, he takes a seat by the piano and picks up a sacrificial dagger that was lying behind his shoulder. Subconsciously, he recognizes it immediately. Margaret offers Angel some tea and is given the choices of jasmine, Darjeeling, or oolong, to which Harry chooses oolong, and not too many choose that. The closest my research got into the significance into the choices of teas is the following. Jasmine is described as a green tea, Darjeeling a black. But oolong is described as a tea that is neither green nor black. Was this an analogy of good and evil? Harry Angel chooses the ambiguous path, the gray in between. Margaret is almost impressed with his unusual palate. Angel, again, is distracted what's behind his right shoulder, taps the keys and plays a few bars of the Johnny Favorite tune. It comes too natural, too instinctive. Margaret's cold exterior shows a little warmth when she notices Harry's musical abilities, albeit very limited. She wonders if he sings. Margaret has a weakness for crooners, after all. When she begins with her questions, asking Angel for his date of birth, he takes a different seat, closer to her, and gives her the date of Favorite's birthday. The fortune-telling session goes south, and it is Angel asking Margaret questions about Johnny. The great irony is Angel is lying to Margaret with the truth when it comes to the birthday. Angel is asked to leave. Apologies aside, Margaret reads Angel's palm and tells him he wouldn't like what she sees. Now comes the question few had asked. Did she know the truth at the moment? Did she realize who was visiting her? Does Margaret read palms in her business? Yes, it's on the poster. Do we assume she's read Johnny's palm before? While we have no explicit evidence, Johnny Favorite had made a habit visiting Margaret's booth on Coney Island when she played Madame Zora. The script mentions Favorite shared Margaret's curiosity in looking into the future. In Harry's visit with Spider Simpson, Spider recalls a time where he saw Favorite on a hotel roof, catching pigeons with a net, only to dissect them later in hopes of predicting the future. This reference to pigeons is quickly made from Harry to Epiphany in his room.
What does a lady see in a guy that runs around chopping up pigeons, you know?
But is this enough to convince us? It's subjective. It's only 1 or 2 frames, and it comes when Margaret shuts the door behind Angel. Margaret keeps her palm flat on the door. She is not kicking out an unwelcome guest. She is holding back an unhappy memory, an evil spirit. But we will discover Margaret will lose her heart forever to Johnny Favorite. When and how did this happen? Before we answer that, like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this video and want to see more content like this one. The murder of Madame Krusemark did not come in Harry Angel's first visit, and the evidence is more than the housekeeper would have noticed. The clue comes in Angel's flashback. We clearly see his left hand wrapped. After his visits with Toots Sweet, after a bad dream, a visit by the police, who gives him the news of Toots Sweet's death, Angel tries to relax in an oyster bar that is decorated with stuffed animal trophies. He's surrounded by death. Stepping into the phone booth, he looks to call Margaret. The script simply reads, "She didn't pick up the phone," and Angel assumes she stepped out. Harry gives the sax player $1 for a tune. The script does not mention his out-of-body experience with the mirror inside the booth, but it does have Harry enter Margaret's home using a skeleton key at the door. This is not in the film, as he helps himself inside. Because of these differences, I have a different take. Why is Harry calling Margaret back, knowing she had kicked him out and would have nothing to do with Johnny Favorite? This is how I think the conversation would go.
Hello. Yes, this is Harold Angel. Goodbye, Mr. Angel.
Harry didn't call Margaret. Johnny Favorite did. "I'm back. I know who I am. I want to see you." And Margaret welcomed him. Angel's inflection, the tone in his voice when he said, "I have a tune for you," seemed awkward and out of place. Even though it was in the script, it was in the delivery. The timing, after remembering events that may or may not happen on New Year's Eve, it was Johnny's voice. When did Johnny Favorite murder Margaret? It was during Harry Angel's second visit. The film fools us into showing a linear timeline, when in fact it was not. 2 realities were intertwined, connected by a street performance. What I think happened, Angel approaches the building, steps inside, but Favorite climbs the stairs. He is greeted by Margaret, who should have known better, but can't resist the man she fell in love with, and no sooner as he sits down, reaches for the sacrificial dagger and attacks Margaret. Favorite runs down the stairwell, looks out the door, held slightly ajar, and sees if anyone had heard her screams over the noise of tap dancing. He looks up and down very suspiciously. Harry Angel closes the door and climbs the stairs. He makes it to Margaret's door unlocked. They are still dancing outside. He enters and finds her body and rummages through her curios and removes evidence of his appointment. The street performers finish their dance when Harry finds Margaret's heart. Harry would find solace in a neighborhood bar with a shot glass in hand. A single fan spins both clockwise and counterclockwise, depending if you look into its reflection or not. Mirrors reveal many secrets, including the one Johnny Favorite stood by when he took the knife to Margaret. We see a mirror where we didn't see one before. Harry or Johnny, the two of them, are always together. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Margaret Krusemark? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, If you want to make a living being a fortune teller, take the time to look into your own future. For $25,000, over $376,000 in 2020, Dr. Fowler will falsify your medical records, fooling the state, the National Institute of Health, and a certain attorney's office about your whereabouts. This is what Dr. Fowler did after taking money from Edward Kelly to obfuscate, hide, and conceal the past, present, and future of Johnny Liebling. Wearing bandages and a headache, Liebling was escorted out of a private hospital on New Year's Eve 1943, and he was never seen again. Private Detective Harry Angel is hired by Liebling's business associate and spiritual guide, Louise Cyphre, to track and find the missing crooner. The trail to Johnny Liebling, aka Johnny Favorite, starts with a bent Dr. Fowler. With the help of the script, we take a look at clues, the secrets behind Dr. Fowler. Angel Heart was released in 1987, written and directed by Alan Parker, and based on the novel Falling Angel by William Schwartzberg. Harry Angel's trail begins at Sarah Dodd's Harvest Memorial Clinic, a private hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York. He discovers Liebling's transfer papers were fabricated by a ballpoint pen used by the doctor. The young nurse stresses the doctor is old. Angel finds Fowler's name and address in the telephone book. He strikes the doctor's name out of the record. Listen to the eerie music as he crosses his pen along the paper. We get a very clever foreshadow about Johnny Liebling's first victim. At the doctor's house, Angel gathers his things to break into the home. He grabs a silver flashlight, which begins a new motif in the scene. Silver, white glass, with a touch of black. He steps out of the car and into the white snow. The camera follows Harry's footsteps. It is similar to the opening of the film. Does it represent the gloom we are made to feel, or an example of things to come? After breaking into the house, Angel climbs into the basement. We get another red window, a reminder of the danger and anxiety first experienced at the Kingdom mission. When Harry pulls the string, turning on the light, we get a very prominent shot of the staircase. This is interesting because the script has Harry breaking into the kitchen and doesn't mention the basement at all. The script reads, Harry snaps on the yellow standard lamp, the living room, unused, an inch of dust, years of neglect, snaps the light off black. With this information, the film conveys the same message, but more subtle and spooky. Notice how the coats are each hung by its own hanger, and each hanger is hung by its own hook. It appears that 3 of the coats look very similar to one another. They're khaki colored, 2 with long sleeves, a 3rd with short. It's very odd and quirky. The stairs go up into the darkness. Like the script, the scene cuts to black before resuming into Fowler's bathroom and his medicine cabinet. We start to see more silver, white, and black, with the razor and the bottle of white aspirin with a black cap. Angel closes the medicine cabinet. We see another example of silver and glass. His reflection. Look at Harry's eyes. He does not like what he sees and avoids looking at himself, as if someone inside, his soul, knows more than we do. Harry opens a tray of sterilized hypodermics, more silver and glass with black lettering. He rummages through Fowler's dresser drawer and finds a 1930s framed photograph. The frame is silver. Angel opens up a drawer, finds a Bible and a revolver, both black, resting on a pair of boxers, off-white. Then we come to the motif's crescendo, the refrigerator. Even the script describes the appliance as old. The refrigerator is full of white, silver glass imagery, including the glass bottles, milk, and other powders that resemble milk, and black ink printed on off-white labels. The refrigerator itself is made of white and stainless steel racks. The doctor, with loser's eyes, returns home and finds Harry Angel waiting for him. Angel quickly begins his interview in a kitchen adorned with silver, black, and white. Unamused with Fowler's answers, Harry helps himself to a cup of milk. The film is faithful to the script, down to Harry washing out the cup, but never elaborated more about the importance of milk. What does the Bible say? In warning us on the dangers of slothfulness and apostasy, the Hebrew chapter 5:13 reads, "For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe." Or put in modern vernacular, anyone who lives on milk hasn't trained themselves to distinguish good from evil. Not satisfied with the doctor's answers, Harry carries Fowler upstairs to his bedroom for a lie-down, hoping a couple hours craving a hit will prepare him mentally and think more clear. We get a close-up of a fan that seems to come to life and spins clockwise. The doctor lays down underneath a portrait of Jesus. We see another jacket stowed away on its hanger. The doctor's hands are resting at his side. We cut to the fan again. It pauses momentarily and spins counterclockwise. A new reality has begun. Angel leaves the room and turns the key while the fan spins back and forth. We even see two different shoes that don't pair up, indicating two alternate realities playing at the same time. Angel parks in front of the Salvation Church. Its windows pose an intimidating color. Harry's feet is seen walking through snow again, as we hear ominous heartbeats as he walks past a mysterious church. Red windows peer at him from afar. He hears voices. Harry looks inside the church. We see two young women studying. They are quiet as they are patient. We see into Harry's mind, a porcelain bowl filled to the brim in red fluid, a chair sitting alone in a hallway, and a sliding elevator gate inviting him to step inside. Cut to the diner, made up of stainless steel and glass. There is a close-up of a glass ashtray and white cigarette butts and black ashes. Harry drinks coffee, likely black, from a white cup and a silver spoon. He taps on the silver key, and we hear a familiar tune likely echoing inside Angel's head. Before the cut to the refrigerator again, reinforcing the motif, we see Harry never really left Fowler's house, at least in spirit. Harry brings up a little bottle of white and silver, then discovers Fowler is killed by a black gun, and the late doctor holds a silver-framed picture. Harry Angel acts too calm and reserved when smoking his cigarette. He appears too satisfied, and is quick to find the ammunition from inside a Bible he dismissed earlier. He cleans up his tracks, wiping his fingerprints. We hear the saxophone and presume it's incidental film music only we, the audience, can hear. There is no one playing the sax in the house, but pay attention to Harry's lips. Is he whistling his version of the tune? The scene ends with a tease. The fan goes back and forth. Which reality is more true than the other? We're not through talking about Fowler, and neither is Louis Cyphre. I can't avoid mentioning the fan Angel poses under. The fan is powered and spinning in a single direction. This affirms the genuine nature of this reality. Cyphre is sitting at his table with a white tablecloth, drinking out of a white cup and surrounded by silver. There are glass salt and pepper shakers, but what takes the cake, or in this case eggs, are the eggs, sitting in a bowl that more resembles a chalice or a grail. I also take amusement at the waiter in the background. He looks at Angel very curiously, as if he is expecting a second person to walk inside. One thing I noticed is Cyphre is wearing the same tie, possibly the same outfit, worn in the Kingdom mission. His wardrobe is predictable. Black, white, a little silver, and some glass. Included is his ring. According to the script, Cyphre wasn't alone wearing a ring with a pentagram. When Angel pressed Fowler for answers at his kitchen table, the script reads, Fowler nervously twists a signet ring on his finger, gold with a 5-pointed star. He drums his fingers on the table. We see close. Fowler's ring is never mentioned again. It's seen very briefly at the kitchen table when Angel lifts him off his chair and in his bed the first time, but the ring clearly disappears when Harry returns from the diner. Continuity error? Or a most subconscious tell that Fowler's association with the occult has been revoked? Before I get into the final secret behind Dr. Fowler, like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this one. Fowler's house would reveal its last secret. In the final moments of the film, during Harry Angel's flashback, we see both Johnny Liebling and his reflection in the mirror as he aims the pistol at Fowler. The facial expression Liebling carries makes him look similar but oddly different than Harry Angel. Even the bent doctor was taken by surprise. Let me know in the comments below, what other secrets do you think the doctor was hiding? If you're wondering if I'm going to talk about that egg scene, that will have to come in another video. This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, say no to pharmaceuticals. Say yes to high quality locks. Toots Sweet, once a member of the Spider-Simpson Orchestra. He was one of the greats. Toots was also a friend of Johnny Favorite, a very good friend, and one of the conspirators, helping Favorite pull out of his deal with the devil. You can find him in Algiers, New Orleans, performing at the Red Rooster with his band. But hurry, Harry Angel wants to ask some questions, and Toots is known for having a big mouth. So grab yourself a Two Sisters cocktail and catch Toots Sweet's final performance before he chokes on his words. Angel Heart was released in 1987, written and directed by Alan Parker, and based on the novel Falling Angel by William Schwartzberg. Toots is first mentioned by Connie, Harry Angel's lady friend associate, who dug up research notes at the Times. Toots is seen in an old photograph with Favorite. Angel returns to Harlem and visits Spider-Simpson in his old folks' home. The script details a long conversation between Angel and Simpson that is boiled down to a narration in the film. Spider says much about Favorite, but little about Toots, other than he was a great musician and likely friends with Favorite in the early days. Harry Angel takes a train to New Orleans to track down Toots Sweet, along with Margaret Krusemark and Evangeline Proudfoot. Toots performs at the Red Rooster, a small intimate music bar, where Toots gets his drinks on the house. Angel poses as a journalist when he speaks with Toots. Toots denies being friends with Favorite, but if you listen closely, he never acknowledges being in the same band with Favorite. He made a record of one of my songs, but that don't make us buddies, he says. Toots brushes off Angel, walks off. not wanting to discuss the matter anymore. Angel follows him into the men's room, much to the displeasure of Toots Sweet, who wants to be left alone and says something very peculiar. "I'm too big to go hiding under beds." Toots is startled by a dead chicken's foot with a ribbon. A bouncer grabs Angel and pushes the chicken foot into his nose before throwing him out into the alley. Angel would have to find another way to get information out of Toots Sweet. After the night of performing comes to an end, Harry trails Toots in his car through the swampy bayou. He comes across an Obeah voodoo ceremony with rituals that include singing, dancing, and Epiphany Proudfoot showering in chicken blood. The great jazz musician Toots Sweet takes a seat with rattles in his hand. In this performance, he's little more than background noise. We see Toots hobble up his stairs. The camera positions the scene as if we're looking at another Escher painting. Staircases and obtuse angles are not uncommon here. When Toots Sweet enters his place, Angel attacks in a room of angels who give Toots no comfort, and the porcelain angel falls to earth. Angel is cut with a razor, but manages to subdue Toots. Toots tells Angel not everyone in the bayou are Baptists, and Epiphany is a Mambo priestess like her mother. Angel inspects the pentagram inserted into one of Toots's teeth, who tells Harry he hasn't seen Johnny Favorite since before the war. Harry scribbles his name and number on a notepad, tears the piece of paper, and stuffs it into Toots's mouth. Angel leaves and drops the razor. A fan spins. We hear the echo of Toots's voice singing like it was recorded from his past, his requiem. Whatever we think happened in Toots's place is followed by visions. Harry walks upstairs into a strange room. His shirt is soaked in blood. An elevator descends into earth without him. We see the lady in black sit alone in front of a stage, a raised platform, presenting a chair. It is an electric chair, complete with cap and arm restraints. The room resembles a place of worship, complete with pews and a stage, but could it be a much different place, where public executions are held, with select witnesses? The lady in black does not notice Harry Angel. Perhaps she does not see him, or just maybe, the specter is waiting for Harry to cross into the spirit world by way of the chair. But before we discuss more about Toots Sweet and some theories, like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this one. Who left the chicken foot for Toots Sweet, and why? How did they know Harry was talking about Johnny Favorite? Do they carry a dead chicken foot around all day, just in case? The why is answered by Epiphany and Toots himself, where he self-describes as having a big mouth. The memory of Johnny Favorite is dangerous enough. Merely mentioning his name is bad luck. But who? The answer is Epiphany's followers, which Toots is one of them. She's a Mambo priestess for at least 4 years. How would a jazz musician who made his fame in New York be associated with Epiphany? Because Toots Sweet knew her mother, Evangeline. The clues come with the close relationship between Toots Sweet and Johnny Favorite. Toots was there when he and Favorite picked up a soldier on New Year's Eve, 1943. This is told to us by Ethan Krusemark. Meanwhile, the lady in black, cleaning up after the sacrifice, may be Evangeline Proudfoot. Very probable that Toots introduced Johnny to Evangeline. To learn more about that theory, check out my other video, Who Was the Lady in Black? We see images, flashbacks to New Year's Eve, of Favorite, Margaret, and a limping man descending a spiral staircase after the gruesome sacrifice. The third person walks with a limp, just as we see Toots does in other scenes. Toots Sweet was played by the late Brownie McGee, a true-to-life blues legend. At age 4, Brownie contracted polio that affected the use of his right leg. A March of Dimes sponsored operation when he was 22 restored mobility to his leg. That distinctive limp wasn't just a coincidental trait of Toots Sweet the character, but an important clue in the film. After Johnny Favorite was dropped off in Times Square with amnesia and a headache, Toots Sweet sought Evangeline's protection. After she passed away, the deal continued with her heir, Epiphany. Toots was a loyal and quiet follower of the Obeah. In return, he would have minders, his keepers, to make sure no one resembling Johnny Liebling comes near him. Pretty simple arrangement at a place named the Red Rooster, where a chicken's foot is always ready to make an appearance. Let me know in the comments below, what are your theories about Toots Sweet? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, have yourself a drink of two sisters, then make up any story you want. 1918, Abbeville, Louisiana. A cop finds a baby left in a cardboard box outside an orphanage. Pinned to the blanket was the baby's name, Johnny Liebling, and his birth date, February 14, 1918. The father was likely a soldier home on leave. Baby Johnny spent the next few months in a hospital before spending the rest of his childhood in an orphanage. Little is known about Johnny's time in the orphanage. Some say he was a shy, awkward child. He kept to himself but found joy caring for pigeons caged on the orphanage roof. Johnny would spend hours looking at them and give each their own name. As Johnny grew older, the opportunities for adoption became fewer. The awkward child spoke little and didn't interact with the other children, making his prospect for being a part of a family distant as his personality. The clergy at the orphanage thought they found a way to get through to Johnny while furthering their own means. Johnny became an altar boy and started singing in their choir. His voice was described as one of an angel and brought renewed interest and donations to the spiritual organization he participated in. It would be the beginning of his journey into music and song. But something else rattled within Johnny. The battle for his soul, thought was won by his orphanage, was fought over by inner demons. No records exist, if there were any to lose, that recorded strange or illicit incidents there. His adult minders who looked over him and fellow children passed away at an unusual early age or vanished from orphanage grounds. Their names were never mentioned again. Johnny hones his musical gifts, picking up on rhythms and patterns, into learning other languages. He impressed the clergyman with his choice in Latin and Greek, mistaking it as an interest in Western mainstream beliefs. Only Johnny knew his plans for his future. By 1934, Johnny turned 16. Unadopted, he ages out of the orphanage and makes it on his own, working as a busboy for several restaurants. He learned to play the piano and was very good at it. Johnny was also very good at reading ancient Latin and Greek texts, believing he could be helped by supernatural energies. 1935, when Johnny was 17, he was an up-and-coming piano player in New Orleans. He studied deeper into the dark arts. His fingers moved faster, his voice more seductive, gaining applause from the dark and dingy bars of the bayou he had performed in. Johnny began his practice of fortune-telling. It would need animal sacrifice to help him see and decide which paths to take in front of him. In the early months of 1938, Johnny was hungry for fame and wealth. With the supernatural powers he had acquired, his vanity and pride led him to offer the ultimate bargain, and headed to a churchyard alone. With several ancient incantations and spells, he made an audience with the Prince of Darkness. Lucifer appeared in front of him. Johnny wanted stardom, and in exchange gave Satan his soul. From that day, Jonathan Liebling would be known as Johnny Favorite, and his career almost immediately took off. Johnny is discovered by Spider Simpson and is invited to join his orchestra. Johnny is given more than a salary, but a percentage of the gate. Later that year, as Johnny toured New York City, he befriended a guitar player, Toots Sweet. They performed together in Harlem at the Dickie Wells Bar, not too far away from a herb and medicinal store run by Epiphany Proudfoot, a Mambo priestess. Toots was a practitioner of the Obeah and introduced Johnny to her. Evangeline and Johnny were connected emotionally and spiritually. Though Evangeline saw the evil within Johnny, she couldn't help but be enthralled with his supernatural powers. Johnny exhibited a rare display of kindness and made a record of one of Toots' songs so he could give him royalties. Evangeline was Johnny's secret love. Only his fellow band members knew. But there was one secret they never learned about. Before the year was over, Evangeline gave birth to their love child, a daughter named Epiphany. She was born in a women's hospital in Harlem. Very few would ever learn who Epiphany's father was. Even Toots, long known for his big mouth, never said a word. Meanwhile, Johnny had to continue touring with Cyphre. However, eventually, he would return to New Orleans. 1939. Johnny meets Ethan Krusemark in a Candlemas Eve party. Johnny was already a rising talent in Louisiana, far removed from cleaning up tables in seafood restaurants. Ethan Krusemark was a very wealthy businessman, one of the wealthiest in Louisiana. He was a shipping magnate, owned a distillery, and a dog kennel. Krusemark was instantly impressed with Liebling. He saw in him great potential, great energy, almost electric. No one heard the whispers exchanged between Liebling and Krusemark that night, but a common tune was struck between them, one of the occult, where the powerful are protected the most. Wanting to win the affiliation of someone as rich and powerful as Ethan Krusemark, Johnny invited him to a private performance, something Krusemark could not resist. Soon later, at the invitation of Ethan Krusemark, Johnny performs a complicated incantation in Krusemark's living room. In front of Ethan's eyes, Johnny conjured up Lucifuge, Lucifer's prime minister. Convinced of Johnny's abilities, he introduces him to his daughter, Margaret Krusemark. Margaret was already more well-versed in the dark arts than her father. Both Johnny and Margaret took to each other right away. 1940. His performance with the Spider-Simpson Orchestra sets an attendance record at the Paramount Theater. Johnny was bigger than Sinatra before Sinatra. In 1941, he and Margaret got engaged. Their engagement was a society scandal of the year. Johnny Favre's rise to further stardom was unstoppable. So were his powers. He was convinced those powers came from within and not the Dark One. In Johnny's extensive library was a manuscript from the Renaissance alchemist, written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, with spells to transmute souls, to steal the essence of another. Johnny had thought he had found a way to duck out of his deal with the devil. In the short years touring with Cyphre, Johnny's behavior is noticed by the band. While his looks always come with a smile, he prefers not to be seen with his fellow performers off stage. He spends time alone in his hotel room or up on the roof, dissecting birds in the spirit of Roman priests to look into the future. Johnny carries a human skull around and would stare at it for hours, believing it gave him powers. During those years, Margaret puts up a fortune-telling booth on Coney Island and goes under the name Madame Zora. Johnny would make several trips there. Margaret's friend Beau, who had a booth next to hers, saw how much Margaret was really stuck on him. But Margaret wasn't the only woman Johnny Favre paid attention to. There was Evangeline, the mother of his child, Epiphany, who was almost 3. Johnny attended the obeah ceremonies, with Evangeline as their priestess. Johnny learned much about their magic, and was initiated but never baptized in their ways. Before her death, Evangeline believed if Johnny had returned from the war, he would have been a powerful Ungan, a male voodoo high priest. Meanwhile, as 1941 dragged on, Johnny began to put his plan in motion. December 7th, 1941, a day that would live in infamy. It was also the day Johnny Favre walked out on Spider-Simpson with 4 years left on his contract. Cyphre was forced to cancel bookings, lost out from making a lot of money, and his band never recovered. Johnny returned to New York to begin planning and plotting his ritual. His research would take a year. New Year's Eve, 1943. Toots Sweet joins Johnny in Times Square. Johnny had spent a week preparing and reciting incantations. He only needed a victim, someone his own age. In the crowd was a young soldier. He and Toots took him back to Johnny's apartment, and the ceremony took place. With Margaret in the room, the young soldier was bound on the rubber mat. Johnny had a fresh, sacrificial dagger in his hand, reciting more Latin and Greek. He took the victim's heart and his soul. No one but Johnny knew the soldier's name. Johnny gave the dog tags to Margaret, who kept it in a canopic vase. No one else read the name on the dog tag because they didn't want to know. Johnny, Margaret, and Toots casually stepped out of the apartment as if nothing had happened. What was left of the poor victim was given to the dogs. January 1943. Johnny's plan was to drop out and resurface as the soldier. He was going to disappear and steal the young man's identity. But Johnny had other plans in motion. He made one last call to Coney Island to break off his engagement to Margaret. Heartbroken, Margaret closed up her tent and went south to Daddy Krusemark. However, before the month was over, he was drafted into the Special Entertainment Services branch. He was going to sing for the Army overseas. Johnny told Evangeline to take Epiphany to New Orleans and wait for him there. He would never return the same man again. March 1943, Tunisia. Johnny Favorite joins a troop show when an air raid by the Luftwaffe makes a strafing run and kills the entire band. Only Johnny miraculously survives. However, Johnny suffers horrible facial and head injuries. His face is disfigured, his memories erased. He became a virtual zombie. Back home in the States, the word spread that Johnny Favorite was killed. While some who still remembered him went out to buy his records, Spider Simpson celebrated with a triple Jack Daniels. After extensive surgery to Johnny's face, doctors could not restore his memory. He was going to be sent to a veterans hospital in New Hampshire, but Johnny's money, with help of his agent, put him into a private hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York. There, he stayed staring out the window with little to say. Later that year, New Year's Eve, 1944, Margaret Krusemark pressures her father, Ethan, to get Johnny out of the hospital. Posing as Edward Kelly, he bribed one Dr. Fowler to release him and continued pretending he was still residing at the Sarah Dodds Harvest Medical Clinic. The bills were still getting paid. It was easy enough to fool everyone there. Margaret and Krusemark dropped off Johnny Favorite in Times Square. His face is still covered with bandages. They let him walk into the crowd without ever knowing what he looked like. It would have been the last thing he remembered. And Johnny Favorite walked out of their lives, or so they thought. The world forgot about the crooner named Johnny Favorite until 1955. Louis Cyphre, escorted by his attorney Herman Weinsap, dropped by the private hospital in Poughkeepsie. After asking to see Johnny Favorite, Cyphre is rudely refused entry. A week later, Cyphre hires Detective Harry Angel to discover the whereabouts of Johnny Favorite. This was Johnny Favorite's unauthorized biography, quoting the movie and its script, referencing the source material, Falling Angel by William Georgesburg for background and inspiration, with some fan fiction in between. Like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this content and want to see more like it. This is Mr. Geosynergy saying, lifetime contracts sometimes don't last as long as you think. Check out other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.